Tarhata Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charana Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai, Samaved Gaur Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Let's continue with our discussion on Vedic cosmology. So, since today is the concluding session, what I'll do is I'll just continue from where we left off last week, and then we'll come back for a revision quickly, all in an hour. Okay. So if you look at the slides, before we go to the slides, let's look at the board here, just to give you a bit of a warm-up. So this is the entire universe. We were discussing about the plane, the 7th plane in this 14 planetary system called Bhumandala. We discussed about that. We discussed about the Sumeru mountain, which was 100,000 yojanas in height. We discussed about the descent of Mother Ganga. Then how she actually falls on top of Manavati, or the Brahmapuri that's situated on top of Mount Sumeru. And from there, how she traverses and inundates the different varshas on different corners of Mount Sumeru. We discussed about that. Then we discussed about the different islands. We then discussed about the movement of sun, then about the moon, about the different planetary systems, Dhruvaloka. Last week we spent a bit of time about understanding how the different grahas, or the different planets, as well as the different celestial bodies, they go around Dhruva Loka in relation to the Kala Chakra, or time wheel. We were discussing how the nakshatras, they don't have any separate movement per se. They are mounted on time wheel, so they just go along with the time wheel. However, if you take sun or moon, their speed varies in comparison to that of the Kala Chakra. And so is the speeds of the different other planets also. Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and all of them. We were discussing how the relative motion between the Kala Chakra, or the wheel of time, in relation to sun and moon, they explain how and why sun takes a month to cover one zodiac sign versus moon taking only roughly about like 2.3 days to cover the exact same distance. We were discussing about that. And today we then touched on the Shishumara planetary system, so that's where we need to start today. And then we are going to discuss about, once we finish Shishumara, we'll then go to the subterranean planetary system. That's what we are going to discuss. We'll touch on hellish planets. There are some questions devotees ask. I try to answer them today, and then we'll do one full revision. That's the plan for today. Okay, so this is slide 2, Bhumandala. We discussed about it. Jambudvipa, this is just the aerial view of Jambudvipa. This discusses about the different varshas that we have. It also tells about Mount Sumeru, the different mountain ranges that surrounds Mount Sumeru, as well as it mentions about the saltwater ocean. Slide 4 discusses about presiding deities and key inhabitants. I'll just skip. Okay, so movement of sun, so 26, 27, 28. If you look at slide 28, did you open the right file? Vedic Cosmology 5. Just checking. So if you look at slide 28, it discusses about a couple of devotees, they asked this question about Rahu and Ketu. Now, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, it discusses about, especially towards the end of Samudramandan Leela, how once the pot of nectar, it came about, then Vishnu, he started to share the pot of nectar with different devotees. And then during that time, Rahu, he came in disguise in the form of a Devata, and he came sitting in between sun and the moon. And he took a little bit of the nectar, but then Vishnu, Mohini Murti, he chopped off his head. And then the head actually became a planet. So that is Rahu. Some devotees asked about the position of Rahu. Rahu is situated, we were discussing how Sun planet is 100,000 yojanas above Bhumandala. Rahu is 10,000 yojanas below the Sun, which means it's more closer to the Bhumandala than the Sun. Sun is 100,000 yojanas above Bhumandala, and Rahu is 10,000 yojanas below the Sun. That's how it's actually mentioned. Few devotees actually asked about how eclipse is actually described in Vedic cosmology. I'll come to the end, but for now, just understand the position of Rahu. So Rahu is more closer to Bhumandala than Sun and Moon. So we need to understand that. So this is in slide 28 you see, and it also tells about the different positions of these different planetary systems, starting from, as we discussed, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Saptarishis, pole star, and then we have the above 4 different planetary systems. So that's slide 28. 29, again, it's just a simplified version of that. But one point we need to keep reminding ourselves is about the terraced structure of Bhumandala. We were discussing last week, it's not one single flat disk, rather it's a terraced structure. Tapering from the middle going all the way to the end, which means Jambudvipa is in a much more higher plane than if you take, let's say, Pushkaradvipa, the 7th island of the Saptadvipa. It's in a much more lower plane. And Sun God, he is 100,000 yojanas above the Bhumandala plane, actually. So that's how high he is. And the moon is 100,000 yojanas above the Sun. Okay, so that's how the vertical distance is actually explained, and we were discussing before. It does, Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't talk about the actual distance between the planets, it talks about the vertical distance only, which means some planet can be, so if you look at the board, what it means is some planet can be, let us say if this is Bhumandala, some planet can be let us say here, and some planet can be here. Now if you look at vertical distance from the Bhumandala plane to this first planet is actually much smaller than this vertical distance. However, if you take this point, and from this point if you just measure the actual distance, let's say if this planet is actually there. So in this case, the vertical distance and the actual distance will be the same. However, the actual distance between, as I said, the measurement is always done keeping in mind the central focal point, which is Sumeru. If this horizontal distance is actually measured, this is much more longer than this height. Even though this planet, vertically, it is much closer to the Earth plane than the other planet, in terms of the actual distance, this planet is actually much more far than this planet, which is actually much more higher. Okay, but Srimad Bhagavatam's calculation, it doesn't tell you about the actual distance. It just tells about, if you look at the cross section, or rather the vertical section, it just tells you what is there and what is in the next level, what is in the next level. That's all it tells. It doesn't really tell the actual distance. At least the calculations are not based on that. That's why you'll always find these sort of pictures to be the reference, because this is the structure which 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam explains. As Shukadeva Goswami mentions, nobody in the creation can actually explain about the Vedic cosmology in its entirety. He's saying he'll just try to do it, depending on our intelligence. Some devotee was asking me last week, we were discussing once how Srimad Bhagavatam, the version which the demigods they actually read, it had 100,000 verses. It has 100,000 verses, versus 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam which we read in Buloka. Now for us, because the point of reference or the place where we are present, the place where Shukadeva Goswami teaches Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, the whole pastime actually happens in Jambudvipa. You will find the focus is given more for Jambudvipa than anywhere else. You will find a lot of descriptions about that. It discusses about the Varshas, everything. But if you go to a higher planetary system, their point of reference will be their Swargaloka. From there, they would actually start to discuss more. So, something for us to keep in mind. Okay, so this is slide 30. Again, similar information. Rahu and Ketu. Now, again, in relation to Ketu is also another planet that's actually mentioned, Graha. It's actually there. So now, Rahu and Ketu, they also constitute a Navagraha. In a traditional system, if you actually see the motions of the different, or even the charts which they actually make, you'll come across this Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu, they are usually diametrically opposite. They keep moving like that. Okay, so the Navagraha is Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Then you have Sun, Moon, then you have Rahu, Ketu, like that. So those 5 planets, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Then you have Sun, Moon, then you have Rahu and Ketu. So that's the Navagraha, that's the 9 planets. If you go to Vedic temples, South Indian temples, you will actually see how they are worshipped. So this is slide 30. I'm just touching on some of them. Last week we discussed about this slide 30A, how this whole Bhumandala is actually balanced by these different gajas, and below also you have the Gajapatis there. But the whole Bhumandala is actually supported by Sesha, who in turn is supported by Kurma or Vayu Kurma. 31, we have gone through this quite a few times. We'll come to that later. Shishumara planetary system. Okay, so 32. What is Shishumara planetary system? Now, if you remember the whole vertical section of the universe, it was discussing about different planets. Starting from, you have Dhruvaloka, and then below that you have the different grahas, Venus, Mercury, Mars, everything. Then you have the moon, then you have sun. Between you also have the constellations, so on and so forth. Now, we were discussing about how the path traversed by the sun, it's called as zodiac or zodiac belt. And the distance that's actually covered by the sun in every month, it constitutes to one particular sign in a zodiac. And we were discussing how that group of celestial bodies, they form a certain shape based on which they are named also. Okay, Libra, Pisces, Scorpio looks like a scorpion, Leo looks like a lion, so on and so forth. We were discussing like that. Now, how will, if somebody sits and meditates on, if somebody has a vision, and if they sit and meditate on this entire Vedic cosmic systems, vertical systems, starting from Dhruvaloka all the way to sun, moon, all the way touching Bhumandala. If somebody sits in a yogic posture, goes on meditation deep within, starting to actually like explore about the cosmos, and when they get the vision about how this entire vertical cosmic system looks like, it looks like an inverted dolphin. It looks like a dolphin. Have you seen dolphin? You can see in Ganges also, sometimes you can see in oceans, you'll see. Dolphins come out and they dive. Just when they are about to dive, the pose which they have, that's exactly how this whole chandelier of this Vedic cosmic system, they look like. So this particular form that is actually made by each of these different planetary systems, each of these different heavenly objects, so to speak, starting from sun, moon, the 28 constellations, nakshatras, the pole star also included. Then you have the different Venus, Mercury, Mars, everyone. If you take this zodiac, everything put together, if you take this whole structure, this 3D model, so to speak, it resembles that of a dolphin. And for somebody who is sitting and meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they get this vision and this becomes their object of meditation. Just like how we read in Srimad Bhagavatam, earlier canto, second canto, how when the yogi, he or she, they sit and meditate, they meditate on the external Virat Rupa form of the Lord. And how that whole conception is actually given for them to aid in their process of meditation so they can realize their self that way. Just like how we see Virat Rupa form also, which Krishna displayed to Arjuna. We discussed that in Bhagavad Gita. So similarly, this is also one external form of the Supreme Lord. If you take all the planetary systems, and if the Supreme Lord demonstrates his form in the form of these different planetary systems, they resemble. They actually form a dolphin. And that is called as the Shishumara planetary system. Okay, and Bhagavatam actually describes, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, it describes about which of these different planets, which part of the body of this dolphin are these different planets located, like that. Okay, so there are detailed descriptions that's given. Like here you see, like close to the belly, you see Ashwini and Bharani, they are there. Likewise, if you take the whole vertical cosmic system, if you read the description, it will actually tell you that. So just like how in the process of Kundalini Yoga, somebody sits and the whole prana starts from the Muladhara chakra all the way to Agya chakra. Similarly, here also, this is like an inverted dolphin, but the whole prana, if you remember, there is Dhruva planet, and Dhruva planet is having like a rope-like structure with which it's connecting all other planets, and Dhruva planet becomes the focal point around which all the other planetary systems revolve. So we also discuss how sun, it has two axles, and the axle is actually made of wind, a special type of wind, it's called the prana. So same way, just like how Kundali also rises from the bottom and then goes all the way to the top. So similarly here also, it's inverted dolphin. The base of the dolphin is always there in Dhruva planet only. So the prana starts from there and then it controls everywhere. So that's how it's also explained in relation to Kundali also. So for somebody who is practicing this particular type of meditating on the external form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when they attain a certain stage, they would get vision of this particular formation called as the Shishumara planetary system. So 33a, it discusses about, as I said, which of the planets are present in which part of the body. Like if you see Shishumara, end of the tail of that dolphin is where planet Dhruva is. In other words, Dhruva is the base planet. And then we were discussing this before, how Dhruva Maharaj, when at one point when he was sitting and meditating, in 6 months' time, chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, he was able to control. In fact, he was assuming the mass of the entire universe. And when he stopped breathing, everyone stopped breathing as well. So he controlled the prana at that point. Interestingly, even in a liberated state, he was actually given control of controlling the prana. He was given the role or position of controlling the prana. This time, he doesn't have to strenuously sit in meditation. Instead, he sits there happily chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu in Dhruva Loka. But similar to the role which he assumed himself by practicing the process of mantra meditation, as well as with the Hatha Yoga system, as instructed by his Guru Narada. We discussed that in Srimad Bhagavatam. So similarly, in Dhruva Loka also, he is given the control of prana and he is controlling the movement of all the other planetary systems. So that's how it's explained. So end of the tail is where planet Dhruva is. This is 33a. Body of the tail, you have the planets of Prajapati, Agni, Indra, Dharma, so on and so forth. In the hips are the Saptarishis like Vashishta, Angira, so on and so forth. It's like a dolphin coming and it's falling down, but it's in a twisted form. So if you go through this is in 23rd chapter of 5th canto. You will see the descriptions that's given. This is just a summary. I just took it from Bhagavad Subodhini. Likewise, right and left loins, you have Punarvashu, Pushya stars. So the 28 constellations, they are also listed here. The middle port, if you actually see. And likewise, upper chin, you have Agasti, lower chin, Yamaraj, and then mouth, genitals, you have like Mars, Saturn, back of its neck, Jupiter, so on and so forth. So you understand this very similar to how you understand the different zodiac signs. Just like how you have these different celestial bodies connecting and forming a certain pattern. Similarly, if you take this, all the upper planetary systems in its entirety, that 3D model, it forms the dolphin called as Shishumara. Okay, so that's how Shishumara is explained. And in the neck, in the bottom you will see there, in the neck is Rahu, and all over its body are the comets, so on and so forth. So that's how Shishumara planetary system is described. And for an aspiring transcendentalist, Srimad Bhagavatam says he is advised, or he or she is advised to sit and meditate on this form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead called as Shishumara. Shishumara, precisely, it's just the external form of the Lord, exactly like how we have Virat Rupa, universal form of the Lord. Likewise, Shishumara is also another external form of the Lord. Okay, so this is the 33b. This is the description of stars above moon. So above the moon, you have the 28 constellations headed by Abhijit.
And they all move clockwise around Mount Sumeru, as we were discussing. Unlike the Navagrahas, we have Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu. Unlike each one of them that has an independent motion from Kala Chakra, these 28 constellations, on the other hand, they are just mounted on the time wheel and they just go with the time wheel. They don't have a separate motion per se, or they don't have a separate motion at all. Venus, Shukra, so this table actually describes about the different grahas and their influence on us, especially Bulokavasis. So if we take Venus, Venus moves like the sun, sometimes behind and sometimes in front of the sun, but most important thing, Shukra it's called, it is very, very favorable. Venus is in charge for causing rain. I was so happy when I saw the New Gokula Farm newsletter a couple of days ago. The big lake which they had, it is back, thanks to the recent rain. So the wetlands are back. Every single time we saw past 2 years, it was always a heartbreak. Whenever you see dry, we always feel very bad. But thanks to Shri Radha Gopinath, thanks to Shri Radha Gokulananda, and thanks to Venus, there was abundant rain. And recently, now if you go there, you can see the lake there. So Venus, it causes rain. Venus also removes the effect of the other planets that nullifies rain. Okay, so it does both. It brings rain, it also clears away any obstacles that is actually stopping the rain. Mercury or Buddha Graha, it moves very similar to Venus. It's generally auspicious, but when it does not move along with sun, it produces a fearful situation like drought, cyclones, and continual clouds. So Mercury is a little dodgy. Terms and conditions apply. Usually it's favorable, but when its movement is not in alignment with that of sun, then it starts to cause all these fearful situations like drought, cyclones, continual clouds. So if you see Vedic scriptures, you will come across these situations, you will come across these grahas, and you will also come across what atonement or what process, what yajna one has to do to pacify all of this. But for those who have taken to the shelter of Shri Radha Gopinath, we don't need to worry nothing. Just sit there and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll get everything. We'll get moon, we'll get sun, we'll get rain, we'll get everything. Okay, so that's Mercury. Mars, Angaraka Graha, generally it's inauspicious and it indicates grief. Sometimes I think, in modern times, everyone wants to go to explore Mars, but scripture is saying actually it's inauspicious. Why do we have to go fight for that, actually? Wasting so much money. Okay, it says it's inauspicious and it indicates grief. Jupiter, Brahaspati, favorable, especially to Brahmanas or those who follow Brahmanical culture of following four regulated principles, chanting the holy name of the Lord and worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's Jupiter. Saturn, Shani, very troublesome. Travels through one zodiac sign in 30 months. Very, very spaced out. It moves very slow. Okay, in 30 months, it crosses one zodiac sign. Sun crosses one zodiac sign in 1 month. Okay, so Saturn, it moves very, very slow, but it is just like Mars. Mars is inauspicious. Saturn is also very, very troublesome. Saptarishis, they are the 7 sages who go around Dhruvaloka. They always worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they always take shelter of Dhruva Maharaj also. So this is the description of the different stars that are given above the moon. It's just a different way of categorizing them, but it's good for us to know. All this information is there in 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I've just tabled them there. Again, above each of these, so the previous slide, 33b, if you see, it discusses about the different planets above moon, and then it goes all the way to Saptarishis. Above Saptarishis is Dhruva planet or Dhruva Loka. So you'll see that in 33c. So in Dhruva Loka is where Dhruva Maharaj, he resides, worshipping the Supreme Lord. Mahar Loka, pretty much Mahar, Jana, Tapa, all these 3 lokas, they are the abode of great sages and rishis. Generally, they are populated by Siddhas and rishis in big number. So if you arrive in Tapaloka, you will see immediately everywhere people sitting and performing tapasya. But in Tapaloka, it's also mentioned they have a lot of different opulences also there, different amenities that's there, that is conducive for their tapa or path of austerity. So here if you see Janaloka, that's the residence of Bhrigu Muni, and Tapaloka, that's where 4 Kumaras live. From there only it's mentioned how they just keep walking and they go finally. In third canto it's mentioned. They then go to Vaikunta, then they curse Jai Vijay there and they come back. So they are very close to Satyaloka. Many instances you will see them going to Satyaloka also. Satyaloka is where Lord Brahma is residing along with his associates. So that's the place where he resides. But we were also discussing how he resides in Pushkara Dvipa in Bhumandala also. He resides on top of Mount Sumeru as well. Like that. So this is how upper planetary systems are described. Now, 34. So if you look at the board now, so we have just finished going through, familiarizing ourselves with the different planetary systems, their movement, their shape, which is the Shishumara planetary system. And then we just saw the summary of the influence which each one of these different celestial body they have on our life. Okay, we were discussing what is auspicious, inauspicious, favorable, so on and so forth. We also discussed a bit on, or just briefly touched on the different planetary system above Dhruvaloka. This is Dhruvaloka. Above Dhruvaloka, I have Maharjanas, Tapas, Satyaloka. Okay, so that's the table we just saw. Now, we are going down. So that's our home stretch now. We are now going through the concluding portion of the 5th canto. Okay, so now we are discussing. So 34, it touches on the subterranean planets. So if you see there, you see Mount Sumeru at the top. And you also see the Kesharachala mountain. It's visible. You also see like a blue streak in between. So that's Mother Ganga falling on the southern side, which is Alaknanda. So she's falling there, touching different, like first from Kesharachala and then different mountains, finally on Himalayas, and then she comes and merges. Now this is Bhumandala, you see. Now this Bhumandala, even though it's given as one single disk, actually the thickness of Bhumandala, it is starting from Bhumandala all the way to heavenly planets. So it is like one single thick plane. Okay. For our understanding sake, it's given as if Bhumandala finishes above Atala, but it's actually not so. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala, hellish planets, everything is under subterranean, means it's under the earth only. Okay, they are like cavemen, literally speaking, but in a very opulent setting inside the cave of earth, inside the cave of Bhumandala. Okay. Different layers you can actually see. So if you remember, Mount Sumeru was totally 100,000 yojanas tall, of which 84 is above the ground. If you see here on the board, 84,000 yojanas is above the Bhumandala, and 16,000 yojanas is under the ground. That's like the foundation. If you take this, consider this as like a huge skyscraper, 16,000 yojanas are under the ground and 84,000 yojanas are above. So that's why you see a bit of that golden Mount Sumeru protruding down. Then you see Atala. Now each of these different planetary systems that is under Bhumandala, in the cavities of Bhumandala, each one of them, they are, if you see the thickness or the range of them, they are all 10,000 yojanas. That's their total thickness, or their thickness actually, if you look at the vertical structure, so to speak. Now, between each one of them, there is 500 yojanas gap between each one of them. That's like the boundary line. Okay. So you see Atala, that's 10,000 yojanas. Vitala, 10,000. Likewise, each one of them. And below Patala Loka is where we have the hellish planets. Srimad Bhagavatam discusses about the 28 hellish planets. Who goes there? What punishment one is meted out with? So on and so forth. So Bhagavatam gives a very detailed graphical description about each one of the hellish planets and what punishments the culprit, whoever who makes it there, they are given or they are made to go through. So this is slide 34. 35 again, it's just a different summary. It also tells you about the different covering of this universe. So if you see Earth, then you have water, fire, air, ether, false ego, Mahatattva. Mahatattva, in some description it's given. Here we see Mahatattva as one single layer, but actually it's 4 layers. You have Mahatattva, then you have Tamas, then you have Rajas, and then you have Sattva. So it's like, technically it's like 10 different layers. And each layer is, so you have the first layer, second layer, third layer. It's given Earth, the thickness of Earth is 1,000 million yojanas actually. Or 100 crore yojanas, it's actually given. That's how big Earth is. like that it's given. Then water, that is 10 times that of that. So you multiply that by 10, and then you multiply, so on and so forth. You just keep on going that way. So it's the covering of the universe is actually very, very thick. Okay. First, Earth is 100 crore yojanas, and then from that point onwards, you then keep adding. 100 crore is 1,000 million yojanas, basically. So it's a lot. That's how thick the Earth crust is. But if you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it will tell you there is actually life inside that covering also. You know, inside each one, there is different personalities, expansions of the Supreme Lord, you know, and how even like Prakriti, Mother Nature, she is actually worshipping her Lord, so on and so forth, you will find. So life is everywhere. Prabhupada, when he describes about soul, Prabhupada says Sarvagata, which means soul is there even in fire. Okay, what to speak of Earth? In fact, the below 7 planetary systems, they are actually inside Earth only. Okay, so like that. So this is slide 34. 34B. Now this will give you a bit more information than what we saw before. So you see Mount, this is 34B. So you have Mount Sumeru, 84,000 yojanas above, 16,000 yojanas below. Below means below the Bhumandala's top surface, okay, which is inside. Then after that, so you see 16,000 here, it's protruding below. Immediately below that 7 lower planetary system starts. So immediately below Mount Sumeru, the first planetary system starts with this, which is Atala, which is 10,000 yojanas in thickness. And there is a gap of 500 yojana between Atala and Vitala. That's why that plus 500 is given. Likewise, then you come to Vitala. Vitala is 10,000 yojanas again in thickness, plus there is 500 gap between Vitala and Sutala. That 500 yojana, that's like the line of control, border, demarcation. Likewise, you come all the way to Rasatala, and then you have Patala. Immediately below Patala, you have the hellish planets. Pitraloka is also given. Then you have Lord Sesha, the holder of earth. We also discussed how the elephants, they are there surrounding also. Sesha, we were discussing last week, as they were carrying the load of this thick Bhumandala. So if you see the actual thickness of Bhumandala, see, it's given cross-section of Bhumandala. So you can imagine how thick Bhumandala is. So you can, if you add up these numbers, you will then get the actual thickness of Bhumandala. So Bhumandala means from Bhuloka all the way to the below 7 planetary systems. Together, it's one single thick, flat earth crust, and inside them, each one of these different planetary systems, they are placed. So that's why this, it's a simple description or illustration, but it explains a lot of description that's given in Srimad Bhagavatam. It also clears a lot of misconceptions that we tend to have usually. We tend to think, just like we have above planetary system here, different planetary system, Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Maharjanas, Tapas, Satya. Likewise, we think they are also hanging in the earth, hanging in the air, basically, but they are not hanging in the air, the below 7 planetary systems. They are actually part of the earth, but they are under the earth. Okay, so here it's given cross-section of Bhumandala, like that. 34B. Subterranean planets again. This is just a quick summary, just to put it, so we can quickly go through this. So Atala planet, who resides there? It is ruled by a demon called Bala. He is the son of Mayadanava. Mayadanava is the architect. Like we have for demigods, we have Vishwakarma. He is the architect for demigods. Likewise, Mayadanava, he is the architect for all the Danavas and Daityas, for all the demoniac people. So Atala is the place where this is ruled by a demon called Bala. He is son of, I just put S.O. Mayadanava. Vitala, Lord Shiva, he lives there with his wife, surrounded by his associates. Sutala planet is where we have Bali Maharaj, son of Virochan, grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. He resides there, worshipping Vamanadev. Vamanadev also resides there. Talatala, this is actually ruled by Maya, the king of Danavas, the lord of 3 cities. Mahatala, abode of many hooded snakes headed by Takshaka. We were discussing Takshaka, the Takshaka bird coming and biting, or apparently biting Parishit Maharaj. So Takshaka lives in Mahatala. Rasatala, abode of the Panis, descendants of Diti and Danu. Nivatakavachas, you will come across this name in Mahabharata. Nivatakavachas were defeated by Arjuna, actually. He defeats Nivatakavachas in the battle, you will see. Kalayas, etc. They are just different different types actually of demons. And then Patala or Nagaloka, this is where the residence of many hooded Nagas. headed by Vasuki. Sarpa means one-headed snake. Nagas means many-hooded snake, basically. So the king of them is Vasuki. So in Patala Loka, you will find all the snakes out. That is Nagaloka. So this is how the description of each one of the descendants, or rather the inhabitants of each one of these different subterranean planets are explained. Again, I just took it from Srimad Bhagavatam. 35, we have discussed this before. We'll come to this later. The title is actually cut off. It says summary of the vertical structure of the universe. 35a. So I just put all of them together, took the idea from Bhagavad Cosmology book. So this will tell you literally the order in which each one of these different planetary systems they appear in the universe. Okay, so starting from, so the way how to read this slide 35a is you go from, with the leftmost table, go from top to bottom, and then come to the second one, top to bottom, then third one, top to bottom. If you read that, then that is this whole universe vertical structure, starting from Satyaloka all the way to hellish planets below, and even below, to Seshanag, to universal covering, actually. Okay? So this will give you a good idea. So the upper planetary system, we have all these four, Satya, Tapa, Jana, and Maharloka. Fifth canto doesn't discuss much about that, but for the sake of completion, it still touches on these four different lokas. Then we have Swarga Loka, which is called Divya Swarga. There are 3 Swargas that are mentioned. So if you look at the board, there are 3 Swargas that are mentioned. The subterranean planets, they are called Bila Swarga. The ones which are below, subterranean heavenly planets, it's called. Their heavenly enjoyment is also there, but it's not in accordance with Vedic scriptures, you can say. It's not conducive for their worship of Vishnu. Yash Shastra Vidyam Utsrijya Vartate Kamaka Karata, Krishna says, Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti, Na Shukam Na Param Gatim. The difference between the demigods and demons is only one thing mainly. Yes, Shastra Vidyam Utsrijya. Demigods, they put faith in the scriptures and they follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as given in scriptures. Whereas if you take demons, they don't have any faith about scriptures at all. They don't follow anything at all. That's the only main difference. But in terms of their enjoyment, there are opportunities for enjoyment here also. And there are opportunities for enjoyment there also. But unlike here, where each one of the different demigods, they take the heavenly or administrative responsibility for the administration of this universe, the demons, they spend their 100% of the time just in sense gratification. So in one sense, it's mentioned, the sense gratificatory opportunities are more in Patala Loka than there, actually. Because there, they still engage in other administration, heavenly affairs. Whereas if you take the demons, of course, we have great Mahabhagavad, they're also Bali. Okay, exception, but generally demons, they just spend their time simply in sense gratification. So in this entire structure that's given here, so it starts, so the lower planetary systems, they are called Bila Swarga. Okay, it still has the opportunity for heavenly enjoyment, avenues for enjoyment, but not heavenly as in what Indra experiences, not in that sense. Material opulence is there. But the sun's rays doesn't come down, because sun's rays is actually blocked by Mumbandala here. At the side, it's actually blocked by Lokaloka. So from outside of Lokaloka, nobody can see. Below Mumbandala also, there is no sun. Okay, earthly planetary system or Bhumandala, that's the border, or that's how far sun's rays actually come, as far as the downward reach of sun's rays is concerned. So below the earth, there is no sun there. So this is Bila Swarga. This is called Bhuswarga or Bhauma Swarga that's given. The heavenly opulence that's given in different varshas, as well as in the different islands of the Saptadvipa. We were discussing about Plakshadvip, Shalmali Dvip, Shakadvipa, all of that. So they are called Bhauma Swarga. So the demigods, after they finish their tenure in higher planetary systems, when they fall, they first fall in one of these planetary systems, in the Bhumandala plane. So that is called Bhuswarga or Bhauma Swarga. This is called Divya Swarga, the one that's there. That's which we usually relate a Swarga or heaven to. Okay, the place from the sun, moon, all the way to Dhruvaloka. That portion, we call it Swargaloka. Okay, so if you see here, upper planetary system, Satya, Tapa, Jana, Maharloka. So that's the 4 planetary systems that's there at the top. Then you have Swargaloka. If you chant Gayatri Mantra, it's mentioned the Supreme Lord, he is master basically. His mercy is there in Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka and Swargaloka. So Swargaloka means, or Divya Swarga means, starting from pole star all the way to sun. Sun is there, then above sun is moon, so I'm going from bottom up here. So under Swargaloka, you see sun, Surya, then above that Chandra, then you have the constellations, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, then the Big Dipper, which is Saptarishis, then pole star. All of them together, they constitute Swargaloka or Swarloka. Then we have Bhuvarloka, places of enjoyments for Yakshas, Rakshasas, Pishashas, ghosts, etc. Do they exist? Of course they do. Where do they exist? They exist in a space called Antariksha. Antariksha means it's the open space outside, above Bhumandala. Now, this is a question one devotee asked me. Bhumandala we are saying, then we have Bhuvarloka, we are saying if you look at the board, so we have Bhumandala here, then there is Swargaloka, we understand. So Bhu, then Bhuvar, and then Swarga. Swarga is from where sun all the way to pole star, so that's Swarga, no problem. Bhumandala we all understand about Saptadvipa. Where is Bhuvarloka? Bhuvarloka is between Bhuloka and Swargaloka. That space is called Antariksha. One devotee asked me, how far is, in the vertical space, how far is it is considered to be the area that's related to Bhumandala. Scriptures actually say, if you look above in the sky, the distance that is actually covered by an eagle. When you see eagle, how far they fly, that's how much Bhumandala is, line of demarcation goes, basically. That's the boundary, rather. Vertical boundary of Bhumandala is the place or above, in the upper space, however far you actually see the eagle going. That's how much the vertical space of Bhumandala goes till. Make sense? Then you have Bhuvarloka. Bhuvarloka is from that place where eagle flies, from that point all the way to above, where the Swargaloka starts. That is Antariksha, that space in between. Bhuvarloka is in between that space. So that's where we have the Rakshasas, Siddhas, Charanas, Vidyadhara, you'll find Yaksha, Rakshasa, Rahu. Rahu also lives there only. Okay, so that's how Bhuvarloka is explained. So this is place of enjoyment for Yaksha, Rakshasa, Pishasha, ghost, etc. Would you like to join them? Then you have Bhuloka or Burloka, that's the Bhumandala we discussed. That's the earthly plane. Then you have the lower planets, Daityas, Danavas, Nagas in the hollow cavities of earth. Bhu Vivaraha. So that's the cavity of earth. That's what it means. Vivaraha means cavity. Bhu Vivaraha means the cavities on the plane of earth. So you have Mount Meru. And the reason why Mount Meru is given is this Mount Meru, as I said, 16,000 yojanas is actually subterranean. It's going under the Bhumandala plane. So Mount Meru, that's why it's given there. Then we have Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. Below Patala, you have the Pitirloka and the 28 hellish planets. Then below hellish planets, what's there? Then there is some remaining earth. Then we have the Seshanaga, we saw. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Balaram's expansion. Then below that, you have Garbhodaka ocean. And then the universe ends at the bottom. So this is the vertical section. Okay, so this is the complete summary of the vertical section. Okay, 35b. Now, quite a few devotees asked me to just explain on eclipse, how we understand a modern eclipse versus how Vedic explanation of eclipse goes. The first two pictures that you actually see here, that's the modern version. I'll tell in as simple terms as possible. I'm just wary of time. I don't have much. Okay, so the top two, it actually describes about the solar and lunar eclipse as we study, like in our modern science texts. So solar eclipse means you see sun, there is moon, and there is earth. The description of solar eclipse means when, for eclipse to happen, okay, let's take a step back. For eclipse to happen, earth, then sun and moon, they all should fall in the same line. Okay, this is something which is same line, doesn't necessarily have to be, one in the same plane in that sense. It can, it cannot. Actually, the place where there are positions, okay, it's hard to simplify that. I'll take back what I actually said. For now, you understand it this much. Sun, moon, and earth, they have to be in the same line. Okay? Now, for solar eclipse, you have sun, then you have moon, and you have earth. When moon comes between, this is the modern version, okay? When the moon comes between sun and earth, moon actually blocks the sun's light to a certain extent from reaching the earth. Okay, when we say eclipse, it's not like moon is going and engulfing sun. Sun is separate, moon is separate. But this whole idea of eclipse is in relation to an observer standing on earth and he is seeing the sun or she is seeing the sun. Normally on a daytime you can actually see the sun, no problem. But suddenly at some time when a moon comes in between, then for a normal casual observer to actually get the sun's light in its entirety gets obstructed because of moon coming in between. If that happens, that is solar eclipse. Okay, the light of the solar or light of sun is actually eclipsed or it's been obstructed from reaching the observer on planet Earth. Planet Earth, one person is standing there looking at sun's rays, getting all the time, but then suddenly it gets obstructed. Then again, depending on how fully or partially it covers, that eclipse is called by different names. Okay, it's total eclipse or partial eclipse, so on and so forth. So that is solar eclipse. Lunar eclipse means you have, again, modern version is you have sun, you have earth, and you have moon. Now, again, all three have to be in the same line, except that this time, moon is not between earth and sun. Instead, earth is between moon and sun. So if you look at here, what is earth doing? When the moon crosses the path exactly in line with the earth and the sun, the earth has a shadow at this point. So then when moon crosses that path of shadow of earth, the earth's shadow actually stops the light of the sun from falling onto the moon. Understand? So moon, instead of showing its full glory, suddenly gets only a part of the light or no light at all. Okay, no light means not in its entirety. You know, sometimes only the red light actually goes. You look at the moon, moon looks red actually. So then that is lunar eclipse again. Okay, so this is how modern version goes. Now, what is Vedic version? Vedic version is, the idea is very similar, except that the whole eclipse is actually attributed to not to moon or to earth's shadow per se, but instead the planet or the graha, Rahu and Ketu, or simply Rahu. Let's go with the description of Srimad Bhagavatam. Ketu is not actually explained there in 5th canto, but Rahu, we'll keep it like that. Okay, so what's happening here is the light of the sun is actually obstructed from reaching an observer on planet Earth, but instead of the modern explanation that it's the moon that's actually blocking it, the Vedic explanation is that it's Rahu that is actually coming. Because remember, Rahu is more closer to Earth than sun and moon. If you remember, sun is 100,000 yojanas. If you look at the board here, sun is 100,000 yojanas above Bhumandala. Moon is another 100,000 yojanas above. Okay, moon is like 200,000 yojanas above Bhumandala. Sun is 100,000 yojanas above Bhumandala. But if you take Rahu is between Bhumandala and sun actually. It is 10,000 yojanas below the sun. That's how it's explained. Okay, so Rahu is actually closer to Earth than moon and sun. Okay, so rather than, or the lunar or solar eclipse that's actually given in modern version that says it's the moon that is actually blocking the sun. The Vedic version actually says it's actually not the moon, but it's actually Rahu and Ketu, which is bigger in size, and it's coming and it's blocking, and that's what is actually causing sun's rays from getting obstructed or from reaching in its entirety to Earth. So this is how solar eclipse is actually explained. Similarly, if you go for lunar eclipse, again, similar to what you see in the modern version there, but instead of the moon crossing the Earth's shadow, it's actually mentioned, it's actually again Rahu Ketu that's coming between the Earth and the moon in the same line, and it is that Graha, Rahu, that is actually blocking. The light of the sun from reaching moon. So this is how it's explained. Of course, on a more personal sense, we were discussing how at the end of Samudra Manthan Leela, Ketu, it comes and it creates that enmity with the sun and moon. So then it's mentioned whenever there is eclipse that is actually happening, according to Vedic version, 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam explains. So the bottom two pictures actually explains about the Vedic version. Srimad Bhagavatam explains that every time this obstructing of light actually happens in both the solar eclipse as well as lunar eclipse, Supreme Lord Vishnu, he releases his Sudarshana Chakra. And Sudarshana Chakra comes to kill Rahu, and Rahu gets scared and he moves. And then again it goes around, comes this side, again blocking, again Sudarshana Chakra comes. So whenever Sudarshana Chakra comes dispelling the darkness, Rahu gets scared and it runs away, basically. So this is how the Vedic version of solar and lunar eclipse are actually explained. Okay? Okay, now this one, Sankalpa Mantra, I'm going to take longer. Okay, we have a fair bit to cover. I may take another 15 minutes. Sorry. If you have to, any of you have to go, you can. Okay, so Sankalpa Mantra, as I was telling, the application of this Vedic cosmology, you will find in so many places. We were discussing even in, when we were discussing about the advent of Krishna, whenever you come across mention of, stars, some planet here, some lower planetary systems here, some demon there, some mountain somewhere, all of that, or even in our normal yagya process that we actually do, you will see the application of this knowledge. If you look at the board, the application of this knowledge of Bhumandala plus the vertical position as a coordinate plus the movement of the sun, a star, so on and so forth. Even according to calendars, there are different, it's a completely different discussion. I'll just briefly touch. Even according to, like if you go for like a normal Hindu calendar or if you go to Vedic calendar, they call it Panchanga. Panchanga means it has 5 limbs. Now what these 5 limbs are, that also varies depending on what process you actually follow. Like one version, it actually says Panchanga means that like, you have, Masa, what's the name of the month, for example. Paksha, what's the name of the fortnight. And likewise it says Vara, what's the name of the week. Tithi, what's the lunar day. And nakshatra, what's the lunar mansion, so on and so forth. So one system explains like this. Another system explains something else. We can come to that later. It's a interesting discussion, but it's completely outside the scope. I'm just telling, if we understand the positioning of each one of these, when you actually come across any calculation in regarding to even Ekadashi, for example, what is a Tithi, what is, or even like Sankalpa Mantra, when you actually do a yagya, or when you read something, or when you come across Rohini Nakshatra, when you read Krishna's pastimes, or some Puranic story somewhere, you'll be able to get bit more insight than what you used to, okay, without this, with this knowledge. So that's where you'll find application of this in so many places. In Vedic lifestyle, each and every single aspect of their life were actually dictated based on this knowledge of Vedic cosmology. Brahmanas would know, they would invite Brahmanas, Brahmanas will do this for free. And the rest of the society, they would in turn come and take care of Brahmanas. And Brahmanas, they are not after wealth. Whatever wealth they get, part of their dharma is they have to give in charity also. Patan, yajan, dana, pratigraha. Dana means they'll get the wealth. Pratigraha means they'll give out the wealth also. They also are very charitable. So at sunrise, there will be a pauper. During the day, they may get some wealth. At sunset, again, there will be a pauper. They'll give away everything. This is Brahmanas. They don't charge people money, but it was a service which they were doing. So for everything, like, from starting education to starting a business venture to even starting war, they actually go with astrology. Everything is closely coupled with this knowledge of Vedic cosmology. So if we are wondering, why are we reading this? I'll read the Falastuti of this at the end. But basically, that's the idea. Now, this is Sankalpa Mantra. I was touching on this, I think, in the first class. Before we do any yagya, we actually, because in yagya, you invite different sages, demigods, and everyone to accept the offering. So, Sankalpa Mantra explains about the position where we are, when we are doing it tells you about these coordinates in terms of the width of the universe, in terms of the height of the universe also, where exactly you are. Not just the position in terms of the static position, it also tells you in relation to the movement of the different planets also. I'm going to quickly go through that. catch how much ever you can. But as I said, it's a completely different discussion. There are a lot of details in this. I can't simplify this in 5 minutes. We need to go step by step. Some other time we can discuss. Okay, so basically, this is Sri Govinda 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 Hasya Sri Bhagavata Mahapurushasya Vishnu Ragya Pravartamanasya. So that's what it's given. Now this Sankalpa Mantra, above if you see, it's recited on March 29, 2017, Wednesday, Heavy Lambi Samvatsara. Samvatsara means it's the solar year. That's called Samvatsara. Likewise, lunar year is called Anuvatsara. So here, Samvatsara, solar year also has got name. So this is called Heavy Lambi Samvatsara. Uttarayane. Ayana is the movement of the sun. Sun has got upward and downward movement. Uttarayana means the time when it starts to go up. Makara Shankranti is the day when sun starts its upward movement. 6 months from then it starts its lower southernward movement, and that's called Dakshinayana. And then Vasanta Ritau. So Vasanta is spring, Ritau is the season. Then Meena Mase. So that's how, based on Pisces actually. So that's the Rashi. The name of the month is also based on that. So then Shukla Paksha. That's Shukla Paksha is the Paksha means the fortnight. Shukla Paksha means the fortnight of the waxing moon. Okay, Krishna Paksha means the fortnight of the waning moon basically. So this is Shukla Paksha. Dvitiya Syam Buddha Vasare. I'll come to that later. I'm not going to touch on that. It's regarding the days, some other discussion. Below that, we have Jambudvipe, Bharatavarshe, Bharatakande, Meroho, Dakshina Parshve, Godavari Dakshina Tire, Shayadri Kshetre Samipe, Mama Svagruhe, Devata Sannido. This is how it goes. And in brackets, you will actually see the meaning. Jambudvipe, Bharatavarshe means in Jambudvipa, the southern tract of land, Bharatakande, the earth, which is the 9th division of Bharatavarsha. If you remember, Jambudvipa has got 9 divisions. Southernmost division is Bharatavarsha. 9th division of that Bharatavarsha is Bharatakanda. Okay, so you see here, Jambudvipe, Bharatavarsha, Bharatakande, Meroho, Dakshina Parshve to the south. Dakshina means south. Meroho, Dakshina means to the south of Mount Meru. Godavari, Dakshina Tire on the southern side of the holy river Godavari. Shayadri Kshetre Samipe, close to Shayadri Hills. Mama Svagruhe, which means it's in my home. Devata Sannido, dwelling in my house. Devata is the god, basically. So this is 35b. It's just a continuation. Adya Brahmana, from the year of Brahma's birth, Dvitiya Pararde, in the second half of 51st year. Second half, Pararde is half actually. Sri Svetavaraha Kalpe, every day of Lord Brahma is called by the name Kalpa, and each day in a month of Lord Brahma has got a specific name. So current day of Lord Brahma is called Sri Svetavaraha Kalpa, in the Kalpa of Svetavaraha. Vaivashvata Manvantare, so that's the name of our current Manu. Okay, Ashta Vimshati Tame, which is the 28th Mahayoga of Manvantara. If you remember, Krishna says, Prabhupada actually explains in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter. There are 14 Manus in a day of Lord Brahma. Krishna comes on the 28th cycle of the 7th Manu. 7th Manu is Vaivashvata Manu. 28th is Ashtavimshati Tame. That's what 28th Mahayuga of Manvantara means. Kali Yuga Pratame Pade, in the first quarter of this Kali Yuga. Okay, Pade means quarter usually. We have Ekapad, 3pad. 3pad means 3/4. Ekapad means 1/4. Pratam. We have a devotee, Mandraghosh. Pratam means first. Okay, Pratama Pade means the first quarter of this Kali Yuga. Then it goes to more detail here. Ashmin Vartamane Vyavaharike, in the current period now reigning. Prabhavadi Shashti Samvatsarana Madhya, among the 60 cycles starting from Prabhava. Hevilambi Nama Samvatsare, that is the name of Samvatsara. Samvatsara is solar year. This I took it from Bhagavata Cosmology book. But this Hevilambi, it starts from 20th March 2017 to 17th March 2018. That's the name of the solar year. Then Uttarayana. Uttarayana means the upward movement of the sun. It's done January 15th, 2017 to 16th July 2018. Because this whole yajna, this mantras, the part of it would actually remain same. Some part would actually vary. Like regarding nakshatra, masa, it would vary. Bharatavarshe, Bharatakanda, it's not going to vary. You're not going to go somewhere else to do. So some portion of this Sankalpa mantra would change and some would stay the same. Vasanta Ritau, it's in the spring season. And there is some description here, it's given. Mesha and Rishabha, solar months, or Chaitra and Vaishaka for Luna months. Meena Mase or Chaitra Mase. So on and so forth, it's given here. So the next one is also Meena Mase, Shukla Pakshe, bright fortnight. Dvitiya Sham Shubhatito. Dvitiya is the second Tithi, actually. The details that's there, I'm not going to go into that detail. I need to give some basics there before we go. We don't have much time. Uttara Bhadrapada. So that's the Nakshatra. Then that's the sun star, or Revati Nakshatra. That's the moon star. Then you actually recite the Sankalpa mantra fully. Okay. So it's given Sri Vishnu Yoga, Sri Vishnu Karana, Shubha Yoga. Actually, each one of them, the Karana, Yoga, each one of them, there are calculations for that. Comes under Panchanga, but some other time. But it will give you some idea about how at the start of every samskar or yagya in Vedic times or even modern times when we actually do, we tell clearly where we are in the Bhumandala, where we are in terms of the positioning of each one of the different planets, whether at this point of yagya is the sun going up or down, where is the movement of moon, which nakshatra is it actually crossing, which zodiac is the sun going under, so on and so forth. Okay, in relation to which Manu there, which Brahma there, what time of Brahma's lifespan we are doing, so on and so forth. So with all those coordinates, it will actually help us to understand it, to develop that appreciation. That's the last slide I've put. So I'll go back to slide 35 for one quick revision. Okay, if you look at the board first, we discussed how fifth canto, it actually first discusses about the breadth of the universe. Fifth canto, 16 to 20, and then 21 to 26, the height of the universe. So initially, it was one single plane, and then we were discussing about Priyavrata. Remember? Priyavrata Maharaj. He then divides this into Saptadvipa, gave it to each one of his different sons. Each one of these Dvipa or the islands, they are named after a place, a mountain, or a tree. Okay? Like that. It's like Jambu Dvipa for Jambu fruit, for example. Likewise, if you take Pushkara Dvipa, it has lotus. So on and so forth. Then we were discussing about the Jambudvipa, how Jambudvipa was actually divided into 9 different varshas, and then each one of the varshas were given to the different sons of the descendant. And then the southernmost varsha is called as the Bharata Varsha, and the Bharata Varsha has got 9 different divisions called Kanda. The 9th division is called Bharata Kanda. That's where we are. So we are very, very tiny, and this is where we were discussing that. We then discussed about the descent of Mother Ganga. We then introduced about the Mount Sumeru here, which is height of Mount Sumeru is same as the width of Jambudvipa. We were discussing total height is 100,000 yojanas. That is the width of Jambudvipa. Of the 100,000 yojanas, 84,000 yojanas was or is above Bhumandala, and then 16,000 yojanas is below Bhumandala. And we were discussing about the descent of Mother Ganga after that, how Mother Ganga, she comes down through the hole that was made by the big foot of Vamanadev when he was killing the universe. And then she then comes to Dhruva planet. Then from there, worshipped by Saptarishis. We were discussing how she is then carried in different airplanes. We discussed about Akash Ganga, how she can take a different form. She also takes the form of star. Sometimes when you see on a daytime with sun there, no cloud, you see water coming, that is Akash Ganga. You can go, you get liberated. So then from there, then she falls on top of Mount Sumeru. I'll quickly go through the slide. On top of Sumeru, and from Sumeru, she then takes 4 different branches. The one southernmost branch, she then falls on Kesharachala. We discussed about a different mountain, and then finally she comes on Himalayas, and then she inundates Bharatavarsha that way. Then we discussed about the remaining islands of the Saptadvipa, different islands, what they do. Then we introduced about even Lokalaka mountain. We were discussed about Kanchana Bhumi, so on and so forth. Then it discusses about sun, the movement of sun around Mount Sumeru, how one axle, the sun god's chariot has got only one wheel. It has 2 axles though. One is connected to the base of Mount Sumeru and the other one to Dhruva. The rope is actually made of prana. So we were discussing about that. Then all the different constellations, they are introduced along with the moon, the different nakshatras. We discussed about zodiac, plus the different grahas all the way to Dhruva Loka. We discussed about Shishumara today. And then we discussed about the subterranean 7-planetary system. We touched on hellish planet. And then below that we have Anantasesh holding, plus the Gajapati. And we just touched on eclipse and Shankalpa mantra. So if you look at slide 35, one question comes to mind. One devotee asked to explain about how do we understand the day and night in position in relation to sun god's chariot wheel, or in relation to sun god's chariot going around Mount Sumeru. Okay, if you look at the board, let us say sun god is there. So you understand it this way, it's very easy. So that side, the side in the other side of the board, so you see Sumeru here, the other side of Sumeru, that is north. And this side where we have the Bharatakanda, this is south, this is east, and then this is west, not south, east, west. Understanding this is easy. The place where you actually have the sun, that place will experience midday. Okay, because you see the sun is in its full glory, that place will experience maximum heat and light. The place where sun is positioned, that's midday. So in this case, let's say the sun god is in east, that place will experience midday. Now, wherever midday is, diametrically opposite will be midnight. Now, the sun is going in clockwise direction, correct? So, sun is going in clockwise direction means it's actually moving away from north. So, this will be sunset. And now, sun is rising this side. So, south will experience sunrise. Easy. This is how fifth canto actually explains day and night in relation to movement of chariot wheel. So the varshas that are, let us say, if the sun god is here, the varshas that are to the south of Mount Sumeru, they experience a sunrise. If at any point you actually see this one, same thing holds true. Let's say if sun is here, now it is moving away from here, which means this will be sunset, this will be sunrise, diametrically opposite will be midnight, and this one will be midday, like that. Okay, so this is how the sunrise, sunset, day and night, they are actually explained in relation to the movement of sun god's chariot wheel. Okay, so slide 35. So if you look at it quickly, so I'll start from the top. So you have Mahatattva, which I said. In some references, there is more detail that's actually given about the Mahatattva's covering at the top. If you actually see, there is 3 more layers made of the 3 gunas. One is tamas, then rajas, then satya, rather sattva. Then you have Mahatattva, then you have false ego, ether, air, fire, water, earth. The thickness of earth is 100 crore yojanas, or 1,000 million yojanas, or maybe 1 billion yojanas. So the thickness. And then water will be 10 times that. So you multiply that by 10. And then you have fire. Fire will be, again, 10 times that of water. Likewise, each of the covering will be 10 times more thick than the previous covering. So the thickness of universe is just mind-blowing. We can't even imagine how thick it is. Okay, so that's how that is explained. Then we have Satyaloka at the top. That's where Lord Brahma lives. Then you have Tapaloka. We have Kumaras, Janaloka, Bhrigumuni, Mahar. Then you have Dhruvaloka. Below that you have Saptarishis. This is slide 35. And then you have these different grahas that are actually given. So you have Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Venus. Below that you have the nakshatras. Then you have Moon. Moon's orbit, as you can see, it's quite smaller compared to that of Sun we were discussing. Then you have Mount Sumeru there in the middle, and then Sun. Then you have Rahu Ketu, okay, who are diametrically opposite. Ketu is 10,000 yojanas below Sun. Then if you see this whole Bhumandala, this is like a tapering structure, so terraced structure. Then in the inner core of this Bhumandala, you have these 7 planetary systems, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Patala. Then below that you have Pitraloka along with the 28 hellish planets. All of them, they are enclosed within the structure of Bhumandala. So Bhumandala is very, very thick. And then in the outside you actually see there is sun, and you have Mount Lokaloka, which is outside of the Saptadvipa, but it extends all the way to Dhruvaloka. And Mount Lokaloka, it surrounds, so it's a circular mountain. This is just the vertical section, so you see this as like 2 peaks, but actually it's a circular thing. Okay, just like you have the Saptadvipa surrounding, likewise you have this big mountain of Lokaloka surrounding completely. So it blocks the light from going anywhere out. Below, this is actually blocked by Bhumandala, and sun actually goes. Srila Prabhupada explains the sun is like the eyes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Prabhupada explains in the purport that sun is the source of light and heat for this planet, but sun borrows its light from, it's just reflecting rather, Prabhupada says, the effulgence from the body of Krishna, and the effulgence or Brahma Jyoti actually comes from Krishna himself. Okay, Brahmano hi pratistaham. So this is how this is actually explained, and then below that you see the whole Bhumandala. It is actually supported by Anantasesh. You don't see Gajapati here. Anantasesh, he then sits on Vayu Kurma. And Vayu Kurma, below Vayu Kurma is swimming in, it's mentioned in ether actually. So then you have the Garbhodaka ocean, and then this is how this all, and we have Garbhodakshai Vishnu, which is not depicted here. So this is how the structure of universe, it's actually explained. I know there is a lot of detail which we actually covered. I tried to simplify it as much as possible. Next time when we come, I hope it will make a bit more sense. Okay, I'll just read what is the use of discussing all this. There is a Falastuti which Shukadeva Goswami himself gives. This is like the concluding verses of 5th canto. This is canto 5, verse 38. So here, after narrating this Vedic cosmology, Shukadeva Goswami says, this is 5th canto, verse 38. In the beginning, the 2nd and 3rd cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, I have already described how one can progress on the path of liberation. In the Puranas, the vast universal existence, which is like an egg divided into 14 parts, is described. This vast form is considered the external body of the Lord, created by his energy and qualities. It is generally called the Virat Rupa. If one reads the description of this external form of the Lord, now this is the Falastuti. Okay, hear carefully. If one reads the description of this external form of the Lord with great faith, or if one hears about it, or explains it to others to propagate Bhagavata Dharma or Krishna consciousness, his faith and devotion in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, will gradually increase. So we may sit and think, okay, half of this is going over my head, I'm not understanding. Doesn't matter. All it needs is if one reads the description or if one hears about it in great faith. That's all that's needed. Whether you understand or not, it's a good, it's like a nice to have. If you can understand, it's good. But if you can't, it's still good enough. If you can hear this in great faith, then one's faith and devotion towards the lotus feet of Krishna will gradually increase, it's given. Although developing this consciousness is very difficult, by this process one can purify himself. Now again, simply by hearing one can purify himself also. Once, purify herself also. By hearing this with faith, one increases one's faith actually. Simply hearing the description of Bhagavata Puran about the description of Vedic cosmology with faith, one increases his or her faith towards the process of Krishna consciousness and towards the lotus feet of Krishna. And by this process, one also purifies oneself and gradually comes to an awareness of Supreme Absolute Truth. 3 things are given actually. One's faith increases, second is one gets purified, and the third thing it's mentioned, one actually becomes Krishna conscious. One gradually comes to an awareness of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So when we read this, we'll understand nothing is happening by chance. Nothing is happening based on some chance theory. It's not happening like that. Chaos theory, they say. You know, it doesn't happen like that. There is a clear intelligence behind this. There is a clear path that's been chalked out by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And each of these different planets, they are administered by different demigods. And they follow this. Yachakshuresha Shavita Shakalagrahanam. Raja Samasta Shuramurti Rasesha Teja. It's mentioned. Out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's mentioned, the sun god jumps into his chariot and he never gets down. That's how it's mentioned, actually. Everyone is fearing sun, but sun god, out of fear of Supreme Personality of Godhead, he just sits on the chariot and he just keeps on going. Because as soon he is the one who defines what is the time for us to sleep, what is the time for us to act. Correct? Even for demigods also. So, simply by this understanding, or at least attempting to understand this whole process of how each of these different planetary systems, they are arranged, they are working, one increases one's faith in the process, one purifies oneself, and one actually becomes aware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'll finish here. Just a quick announcement. So this one concludes 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedic Cosmology. Thank you for your patience. Sorry, we did the first 2 parts and then in between we had to skip a few because we had few other programs that came up. I hope this helped at least to a little bit to get yourself acquainted, familiarized with this beautiful subject of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says, there is nothing like Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no comparison, no competition. Which book will we bring? We can explain any philosophy. Actually, we can explain anything modern also. But nobody can explain outside of Srimad Bhagavatam. You can explain Bhagavatam only with Bhagavatam. We cannot explain it with anything else. So, thank you so much for the opportunity. Regarding Janmashtami, unfortunately, due to the worsening situation, the temple management has decided that we are not going to leave the temple open for public on Janmashtami. It's very sad, but we have to see it is our collective responsibility. We see, like, different ministers, politicians, they are really working hard to contain the virus, to contain the spread. So each of us, it's a collective responsibility. We need to do our bit. While talking about the different politicians, ministers, let us chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra for them, because it's a very trying circumstance and they are there, out there in the front, taxing their brains, trying to contain it. And more than ever, it's the time when they actually need support from everyone, from all walks of life, especially those who are spiritually inclined. Please pray from the bottom of your hearts, so that these leaders of the society who are in a very, very responsible position, and they showed a lot of character in the past 5-6 months that we have actually seen, that they actually be blessed with good health, blessed with the good enthusiasm, good energy, good intelligence, so that they can continue to lead our country out of this crisis. Let's chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra for them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this year Janmashtami, unfortunately, it will be a closed door event. So only the temple residents will be participating, plus the 4 senior pujaris. Other than that, unfortunately, we couldn't allow anyone. But all the programs will be broadcast live in Mayapur TV. We have also made the provision, giving everyone an opportunity to register for Mahaprasad. So if you go to the website iskcon.com.au, you will find a form there. You fill the details and you can register for having Mahaprasad delivered in your home. And we will also be putting up a poster either tonight or tomorrow, requesting devotees to please send your offerings, prayers, wishes to Shri Radha Gopinath on their birthday, which is Janmashtami. So we'll read out to Shri Radha Gopinath your heartfelt prayers and offerings. So please do send. For Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja also, we are requesting everyone. So we are in the process of contacting different Prabhupada's disciples, asking them to either join us in Zoom that day so we can broadcast their offering to Prabhupada on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja day, or they may send us a pre-recorded video which we will be sharing with everyone in Mayapur TV during that time. This is also a great opportunity for all of us, whoever who can't come to the temple especially, to please write your heartfelt offering expressing your gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. We will read that out on that day and we'll broadcast it that day as well on Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja day. How exactly to submit your offerings, we will be sharing that either tonight or tomorrow. So please check our website, Facebook page for more information. Thanks to everyone who has come forward to donate generously for making all these festivals possible. We all know, we are hearing about job cuts, we hear about loss of pays, we hear about devotees being laid off, some of them from their jobs and everything. But despite all those challenges, you are coming forward and giving your hard-earned Lakshmi in the service of Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. Our heartfelt prayers that you all be blessed for showing that tremendous amount of faith, because Krishna, he is Rasaraj, he can change the situation like that, but Krishna knows how to enjoy also in every situation. So thank you for making sure from our side at least that Krishna's enjoyment goes unhindered. Just because this year it's going to be a closed event, we are also going to have one more bonus Jhulan Yatra festival on Janmashtami day. So stay tuned, and we'll be sharing more information in next couple of days. But please do send us your offerings and prayers. We'll read out to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, and please send us your offerings for Srila Prabhupada as well. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai.